I was very skeptical about South of Midnight every time that Xbox has shown us this game, but it always really intrigued me with its very unique stop motion aesthetic. This is also along with the interesting setting of the Deep South and that awesome looking gothic stylization. I wanted to know why we have this aesthetic, where the plot was going to take us, and how the platforming and combat feels, and so much more. I dove into this experience with an open mind though, taking in every single bit of lore, scenery and story in my rough 12ish hours on this game. So is South of Midnight an excellent platforming adventure in the Deep South, or does it make me want to weave the fabric of time and wish I never experienced it? Well, my name is Fletcher, this is Xbox Nation, and here is my review on South of Midnight.
He saw things different, he was my shade, and I said goodbye. I said farewell, I took my hammer, my ticket to hell.
I want to start off by giving you a very rough idea of the story and what you're going to experience in South of Midnight with minimal to no spoilers. This game truly stands on its own 2 feet very proudly, with dark overarching themes and a sense of discovery. The premise of the story is down to our character known as Hazel, whose mother gets caught in a natural disaster within their hometown. Your job here is essentially to find your mother after she gets swept away. It sounds very basic, but trust me, it gets weirder, deeper and darker in terms of where it takes you. Throughout the game, you will become what is known as a weaver. This is in essence someone who can pull, twist and rework strands in the world which others cannot see, and this really is the overarching mechanic of the entire game. These strands will become a pivotal part of the overall game while searching for your mother, as each of them represents different feelings, emotions and so much more. Alongside this though, and throughout your search, you will come across different characters, some of whom have their own stories you are dissecting, looking into, and ultimately saving them from despair and bringing back hope to this world. These stories that you can explore will be incredibly hard-hitting, and these were a massive highlight of South of Midnight for me. The narration from not only Hazel herself, but also a talking catfish you encounter within the early stages of this game are expertly woven to provide you with the overarching narrative. These stories are all part of the overarching main story though, but they all have some reason to be there, and Compulsion Games have done an excellent job of tugging not only at the heartstrings, but also giving you such engaging moments that honestly, it was so hard to put down. Their stories lead to you weaving these different strands and then diving into boss battles or major plot twists. You probably would have seen a couple of boss fights previously and see a couple of bosses within the trailers shown off by Xbox. Yes, you do fight a massive crocodile and also a very angry owl, and there's also so many more. The boss design is absolutely stunning here, but more on that later. For me, this game is really reminiscent in a way of the underrated Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. It has the same premise of finding these sort of lost or damaged souls and investigating what happened to them, then to be faced with a boss battle or big story arc at the end of each segment. Banishers was really one of my favourite games in 2024, and Compulsion have done such a great job that the story for me, to be honest, was the biggest highlight of my entire playthrough. It never outstays its welcome, it does a great job of pulling you in, and the characters you meet along with Hazel are so excellently crafted. Now, this area is one that I will split into 2 parts, as I have a lot of thoughts with some positive and some negative. First off, I will be diving more into the world and what you can actually expect within South of Midnight. The world of South of Midnight is absolutely stunning, and I loved every single minute of diving into the Deep South. You can tell the team over at Compulsion really poured their heart and soul into this area of the game, and to be honest, it really shows. You wouldn't be amiss by thinking that areas will look familiar, but that is far from the case. There are so many different environments here, from the dark and decrepit swamps to the absolutely jaw-dropping visuals when trekking to a mountain peak. The scenery and the art direction is simply incredible. The platforming when going through the environments is also very enjoyable and never got stale or boring, as I did look into every single nook and cranny available within this game. You go from simply running through lush Greenland, running across treetops and wall running across the place signs, and it's all perfectly executed, and the platforming really fits around the entire world. Of course, like any platformer out there, you will have different elements to find, such as glowing orbs that give you points towards skill tree upgrades, lore books and so much more. I will dive more into the skills and combat momentarily, but one area that I did want to highlight in terms of exploration is to build up the boss battles or leading up to a big story point. You will will be scaling mountains, searching for ways to clear a path ahead, or using a small companion that you acquire in the story to help clear the stigma in an unreachable location. The exploration and world building really are the big highlight, and I know so many of you will simply love this entire aspect. It is very simple in the way that it is presented, with the typical double jumps, gliding and climbing, but it nails that simplicity and makes it such a highlight to the overall experience. Now, onto the combat, and honestly, this for me is very middle of the road. There are no enemies in the world whilst exploring like you get in games like Psychonauts 2. Instead, they are designated within these sort of small combat areas where you have to defeat waves of enemies known as the Haint, and then at the end you will unravel the knots to break the stigma around you. It was peculiar for me personally, especially as you are funneled into these areas and they are also mandatory to progress the story. It feels as though they are sometimes put there just to extend the overall playtime, and in later sections of the game there are multiple you have to clear just to progress that main story arc. By no means are they bad, but I feel there could have been a better way to fight enemies without being shoehorned into these tight and small confined combat areas. The enemy design though is one aspect I absolutely loved. They are drenched in gothic tones, and they also look very gruesome and really emphasize that dark folklore inspired setting. My only gripe, which is a very small one, is that there are limited enemies that you encounter, but of course they do ramp up in different types you come across in later parts of the game. The only issue is that there's only actually 6 enemy types. I was expecting a bit more variety, as once you're about halfway through the game, the enemies are practically the same. It happens almost all of the time, and that's where arenas can feel rather tedious as it's just so samey. With combat within these arenas though, it's also somewhat middle of the road, and I feel it could put off some players. You have all the tropes of a usual action platformer. You have light attacks, a charged heavy attack, and then small abilities which can also help you in battle. These range from stunning enemies, using a shockwave to displace enemies, or send projectiles back to them. Just a note on skill trees though, you do have a very small one, and you can level this up throughout the game, which gives your abilities a better damage range or just stuns enemies for a longer period. It's in no means a big aspect of the overall game, and I was a little disappointed that this wasn't expanded on further. It feels as though it was a bit of an afterthought by compulsion, so don't expect much of an impact within the gameplay. The combat though feels okay, and I did enjoy my time with it even though it was rather basic. You can easily pick it up with relative ease. The main issue though that I can see frustrating players more than anything is that the lock-on camera for enemies was so finicky, and at times even caused me to perish way too often. If you're wanting a good chance in combat, then use the free camera and dodge enemies, as it makes it just so much easier to use. I know a main gripe for people who took part in preview events was the enemy attack pattern and also timing when to dodge their attacks. There is little to no hint at all sometimes as to when enemies are going to attack you, and oh boy does this get frustrating. So many times I would be hit out the blue as I didn't know when they're going to attack me. You can get used to this as time goes on, but I still get hit by enemies when I don't see any sort of prompt. It's frustrating and inconsistent and can ultimately take to your demise. You can tell that the combat in this game is kind of left a little to the wayside, and the story and exploration really is the main draw. I will briefly touch on the boss fights, and I will note there are some tiny spoilers in this section just due to the nature of their names, but I will only be including the first 2 you come across, as I really don't want to spoil the later stages as they will blow your mind. So feel free to skip ahead even if you don't want to see minute spoilers. So these boss fights vary in difficulty, and each of them have their own attack patterns, and the boss design is honestly mind-blowing. These arenas usually consist of 3 to 4 stages, with you having to use the environment and your powers to defeat them. The intensity of each of the courses ramps up every single time, and as you get to the next phase, you are tasked with unique gameplay elements to progress to the next. Due to the scale of some of these bosses, they were so intense and honestly had my jaw on the floor. I really enjoyed these elements as they incorporate almost every single mechanic into each encounter, and I know this is going to be an area which many of you will really love. Now, onto the performance aspect of both the Xbox consoles, and I have to say for me, it was a fairly flawless experience across both of them. The main playthrough for me was on the Xbox Series X, but I did experience some sequences with the Xbox Series S. For the Xbox Series X, it's targeting 4K at 60 FPS, while the Series S is targeting a resolution of 1080p at 60 FPS. I will chuck a couple of comparisons on screen for you now, and as you can see, the game looks very similar on both consoles. Due to the stop motion aesthetic, I don't think there are any major differences here. That stylization is so beautifully rendered across the board on both consoles, and I can confidently say that you'll have a great experience no matter what Xbox you're actually playing on. I did want to point out though that I did have a couple of frame rate dips in quite high density areas, and that certainly wasn't great and it was very noticeable. But I do know that Compulsion did state that a patch is being deployed for launch to fix these issues, so I cannot speak for the full launch experience at this time. I know this area is one that many of you might be interested in hearing more about, and honestly, I don't blame you. The stop motion aesthetic is a real sticking point for South of Midnight, and I know many are torn about this style, with some absolutely loving it and others who absolutely hate it. I suspect this will be the case when the game is fully out there on the market, and I do expect middling reviews across the board, just totally dependent if someone likes this art direction or not. For me, I love the stop motion. I think it's so unique. It's expertly done so it's not too jarring, and in gameplay it's so effortlessly integrated that it's not too harsh to break that immersion or detract from the overall experience. Yes, you can turn off the stop motion in-game, and I will chuck this on screen now. I do have to state though that this doesn't stop the stop motion in the cutscenes. This toggle only affects Hazel and the bits of the world around you. I did find it doesn't stop everything though, but it's still a nice option for you to have. Like I said though, it's a stylistic choice and has nothing to do with the world. They could have put this in a generalized 3D environment and made it a boring run-of-the-mill 3D platformer, but this aesthetic is so pleasing, looks beautiful, and I absolutely love it. It's definitely like Marmite though. Some will hate it and some will absolutely love it. The sound design is another major highlight I wanted to bring up in South of Midnight, and I cannot get the songs out of my head. The team here did a wonderful job with the music, and it fits the setting almost perfectly. When you come up to a boss section or a large platforming segment and have the music ramping up, it simply gives you goosebumps, and it put a massive grin on my face every single time. Personally, I've even put a couple of songs on my own Spotify playlist as I think they're absolutely excellent. The music will also really stand out here with a few of these musical numbers, and they will leave a big smile on your face while fitting perfectly into each chapter. The sound design across the board is also great, and I recommend headphones for the most part. Hearing whispers from the strands in the sky to the bleat of crickets in the fields, and also the creaks of treetops in the swampland. It's so well done and just expertly crafted. Now, this is what it all comes down to, my final verdict, and I have to say I absolutely adored my time with South of Midnight, even though there are certainly some flaws. It's a good action platformer, but the story, the world, the sound design and aesthetic make it such a fantastic experience, and I will heavily recommend it to anyone, especially if you have Xbox Game Pass. For me, I love that stylistic stop motion, the environments here are top drawer, and I can tell that Compulsion really poured their love into this project. Yes, it has been brought down by some really average combat, a limited skill tree and a few performance issues, but overall the package for that smaller price tag makes it such a great value for your money, and I think you'll really enjoy your time with this exclusive. I will be giving South of Midnight a 78 out of 100, and I'm so happy to see that Xbox has got another great platform experience joining the likes of Psychonauts 2. I do see some not liking this experience, and to be honest, that's totally okay. But if you want a dark, gothic inspired world with a story that pulls at your heartstrings, then you should dive into this one right away. What do you think about South of Midnight, and are you going to dive in? Let me know in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this review, and subscribe for more Xbox content like this every single day.